What's up, guys? It's Brandon Flash. Today behind me we have my 2022 Rivian R1T that will be leaving in just a couple days, and then we have my brand new 2023 Tesla Model Y 4680 structural battery pack. We're going to do some brief comparisons between them, give you a full exterior interior tour kind of at a high level, talk about some of my initial impressions. I've had the Rivian for just over 9 months, put 24,000 miles on it. Just got the Tesla last week and I've put about 250 miles on it. Just want to share my impressions. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you're pretty familiar with my Rivian R1T. But if not, if you're new here, like many of you that have subscribed since I got the Tesla, this is my 2022 Rivian R1T Adventure trim. It's the large battery quad motor, which is the only drivetrain configuration they're delivering, at least as of right now. The dual motors are just now starting to roll off the line. We've got aftermarket running boards here. It's the Rivian blue exterior power tonneau cover. I got that before they stopped adding them. Still fully functional. I did a whole video going through my experience with the Rivian. We have the 20-inch all-terrain wheels and tires. Coming around back, the whole truck has paint protection film on it, so the exterior looks pretty fantastic still. We've got window tint, and we'll go into the interior as well. This has the Ocean Coast interior. So it's kind of the, not quite white, but kind of a light gray. It's definitely not as bright as Tesla's white interior, but I like it. I think it's pretty fitting for a truck. Really like the seats as well. So that's an overview there of the spec of the Rivian before we dive into the comparisons. And here is the Tesla Model Y. Ignore the temporary paint protection film I've installed for the road trip coming up before I have professional paint protection film done. That's not permanent. Don't worry about that. It looks terrible, I know. But we have a base model all-wheel drive Tesla Model Y, the 2023 model. We have the Gemini wheels. I've taken the covers off. We have deep blue metallic exterior. We have the black and white premium interior, which you can tell here just comparison to the Rivian interior. This is a lot brighter. This is definitely white versus a gray. I have done some exterior modifications. I have these Rally Armor mud flaps. Again, paint protection film back here. And this is the Made in Texas base model. So this has the 4680 cells with the structural battery pack. And I've put about 250 miles on it. So why don't we start with the front end, with the front trunks. So over here on the Rivian, we have a button to open the front trunk right about here. You can see that under there. So we're just gonna press that. And it's actually a power open and close front trunk. Got a liner in here. I have one of those in the Tesla as well. These are from 3D Mats. I do have a discount code and a link down below for these. I have these in the interior of both of these cars. And then under here, we also have a sub trunk. So you can see that's fairly deep. I definitely opened that the backwards way, but it was slightly easier to grab it that way. But very large front trunk on the Rivian, of course. It's a truck, so it's just overall quite a bit bigger. And then to open the front trunk on the Tesla Model Y, we actually have to either use the mobile app, which is a little tricky considering I'm using my phone to record, or we have to open it from the touchscreen there by pressing that. And this is not power open or close. So just open like that, it's a bit springy. I do have quite a bit of stuff in here. It's not the deepest, but you can kind of tell there how deep it is. I've got my tools, some of the occasional use stuff, but things that I like to keep in my vehicles, the tools, charging equipment, all sorts of fun stuff. And to shut this, you just do like that. Normally you want to do two hands, but I'm going to do it carefully with one hand like that. We'll come around to the trunk, which we don't really have a direct comparison to on the Rivian. Power hatchback, of course. It's a Model Y. This is probably the dumbest tonneau cover I've ever seen on a hatchback before. It does not stay really at all, and it's really terrible, but I'm glad it's at least covered. We have the sub trunk down here, and then we have another, and there's the tonneau cover closing on me. And then I added these little lift straps from Abstract Ocean. Move this bin so you can actually open that. And then we have another sub trunk up here as well. So lots of storage. You can see just the size of the hatchback trunk area. We've got these compartments over here on the side. I've got some detailing supplies on both of those sides. Power close. And then we'll go to the Rivian gear tunnel. So this opens on both sides. This goes all the way through. You can see tons and tons of storage there. I would say it's not the most useful shape of a space for a lot of things. Of course, if whatever you're trying to store fits in there, it's very useful. But it's kind of weird because it's angled. You can't, even the bin I kind of have to jam in there to fit properly. You of course do have some storage in these as well, but that's taken up by factory things. You have these to stand on or sit on as a seat, which is pretty handy. And then we also have the bed because it's a truck. But I would argue that a truck bed is not necessarily that useful either, because this is not perfectly sealed from the elements. If you go through a heavy rainstorm or a car wash or something, water will get in here. This is a bed extender. This is aftermarket from Rough Country, not available yet. This is a prototype unit. And then under here, if you don't spec the spare tire, is more storage. To get in there properly, you actually have to remove the bed extender here, so I'm not going to do that. But I have a full-size spare in there. Otherwise, you can use that as additional storage. Shut this. Shut the tonneau cover. And coming to the interior, underneath the rear seat of the Rivian, we also have more storage. So just tons and tons of storage here. That's something that the Model Y really doesn't have. We've got our door cards here. So nice storage there in the rear. We'll go to the Model Y for comparison. So these, of course, do not fold up. They're just fixed in place because you have the battery penthouse underneath here, actually, which has some of the power electronics. You've got your 40-20-40 splitting seats. So pretty nice there. I like that you can leave this open. I currently have this left open for now because I want cool air to be able to go into the cargo area depending on what I have back there. You've got your door pocket or seat back pockets here. I'd say pretty comparably useful. I've got a phone mount. I've got my CCS to Tesla adapter and my J1772 adapter just in there. I would say neither more or less useful than the other. We'll go to the front seat here. We have our door card, got some water bottles, an umbrella. I added these aftermarket bins for more storage under the seat because the seats are basically on risers in the Model Y compared to the Model 3. And let's look at storage up here. So here we have our console. So that goes down pretty deep, I'd say. We have our wireless phone charger that actually works fairly well. I'm still not a fan of wireless chargers as a whole, but it's acceptable. And I've also added this aftermarket tray from Spigen. So that slides if there's not stuff blocking it from sliding like that. Under here, we have more. This is aftermarket. This is a little tray that allows you to hide things on the top of your console tray. I have a bunch of electronics in here because I'm about to go on a road trip. So I have some power splitting here. We've got a 12-volt little splitter there. We've got my hotspot because I want to be able to power my radar detector, this phone mount, and some other things while we're in there. Just like that. And then I do have a tray coming for this area as well. And then for these wires, I actually have them tucked alongside here. So that way you're not seeing them. They go behind the screen there. But overall, quite a bit of storage. We also have a glove box in this, unlike in the Rivian. So there you can see the glove box. And now let's go to the Rivian front seat. So passenger side, we've got the door card here. So again, quite a bit of storage. We do not have a glove box under here. This is just fixed. We do have these nifty little storage compartments underneath the seats, which is pretty nice. We have this open area. This is very similar to early Tesla Model S that have what they called the yacht floor. but it's useful for some cases, not so useful for other cases. It really just depends on what you're trying to store. This is nice if you're a woman to put like your purse or something. You can put miscellaneous items there, but you have to be mindful that if it's too tall, it could roll off the sides potentially, which could be a bit of a hazard if it rolls into the foot area of the driver. So be mindful of that. It's also fully exposed, anything you put there. So if you're parking somewhere that's maybe not the best, I'd be cautious. Down here we have the camp speaker. So that way you can pull that out. Bluetooth speaker to use for your festivities. Got our center console here. This is an aftermarket little tray as well. So that just sits in there. And then in here we've got kind of a black hole, I would call it. I'm glad that there's space here, but it's not really the most useful because it's hard to keep anything organized. There's some aftermarket solutions that make a little bottom organizer, but otherwise you kind of just have to put things in there and hope that it doesn't just all end up in a mess. So that's how that goes in there, kind of just a friction fit of sorts. On the Rivian, we also do have this rear screen, which the Tesla does not. Model S and X do though, however. Here you can see the 3D mats up front on the Rivian. Nice fit there. We've got our touch screens, or touch screen. So this is our main infotainment system. And then the Rivian, of course, has a second instrument cluster, which the Tesla does not. But I don't necessarily view that as a positive or a negative, just kind of a different approach. Something I specifically wanted to hit on was the seats. So in the Model Y, they're just standard seats, if you will. They're super comfortable in my opinion, but they're not ventilated. They are heated, and not being ventilated does have one pro. If you spill something on these, it's not going to get like all in the ventilated perforations. However, that does mean that they're a bit hot sometimes. I usually like to precondition the car quite a bit before I get in it, just so that way the seats are nice and cool before I'm even in it, just from all the air blowing on them. However, I do wish that they were ventilated. Model S and Model X have ventilated seats, but Model 3 and Y do not have ventilated seats currently. Hopefully with the refresh, they get ventilated seats, but it's not the end of the world. I do think these seats are super comfortable. I'm a little bit on the narrower side. I'm 6'3", but not that wide. And I think these seats are super comfortable. They're super plush too. Everyone that gets in this car thinks that the seats are super comfortable. So I think overall these seats are a total winner. I do prefer these over the Rivian seats, but let's jump over to the Rivian. I'll show you those as well. The Tesla seats do look really nice, but I think the Rivian seats look even nicer. They just have a lot of really nice little touches, like this denim type material with some beading, I guess you will call that. This little bit of a strip down the middle, and then this really nice accent here with the Rivian logo. These seats are clearly in a more expensive vehicle, of course, but these seats look really nice. So you can see the perforations here, so that's where the ventilation comes out of. It's fairly effective. It's not a cooled seat, it's just a ventilated seat. So for them to be truly effective, you do have to have the AC on. I use it pretty much every drive year round in the Rivian, but I'm also in North Carolina, so it gets pretty toasty here year round. And I think these seats are great, but they are a little bit wider than the Tesla seats, which is good or bad depending on who you are and what your body composition is. But these are definitely a bit more truck seat feeling than in the Tesla. They're wider, a bit flatter, a little bit less aggressive bolstering. Still very, very comfortable, but I do prefer the Tesla seats. And this is certainly not going to be a comprehensive review of driving dynamics, but the Rivian, I just drove it again after driving the Model Y for the past few days after delivery. And the Rivian definitely feels much larger than the Tesla, which is not surprising at all. It is quite a bit larger vehicle. I don't know the exact dimension, but I'd guess somewhere in the 3 feet longer range. It is about 10 inches narrower as well. The Rivian definitely feels bigger. It is bigger. The steering is a lot lighter actually, which is surprising. I wish the Tesla steering was a little bit lighter. And yes, I do have it on comfort steering mode, which I used to think was too light actually, but now I like it. So maybe just my preferences have changed over time. The Tesla is a bit smoother at higher speed, definitely quieter at higher speed. I think that's largely attributed to the all-terrain tires on the Rivian. I think if I had the 21s or the 22 street tires, the Rivian would probably do better in that regard. As far as overall around town driving, I actually prefer driving the Model Y. I generally prefer smaller cars that are a little bit more nimble, don't have to be as mindful of other traffic and things like that. You kind of just dart around not without care, but with a little bit less care, I guess. I also think the hatchback is a lot more useful than a truck bed, and this way the front trunk is being used kind of how I use the gear tunnel in the Rivian for kind of more occasional type use items, things that live in the vehicle, things that are not temperature sensitive, of course, because the front trunk can get a bit toasty just from ambient air and heat rises from the cooling system. Same thing on the Rivian though, so I always recommend people be mindful of anything they put in the front trunk of the Rivian, especially if they're on a road trip that involves fast charging, because the front trunk on the Rivian actually gets quite warm when you're fast charging because all the cooling systems are right underneath it. And that all does kind of permeate through the base of the front trunk, and I've seen it get rather hot. But those are some of my quick impressions. Sound system is really good in both. Tesla slightly better in my opinion, as I've mentioned before. But if you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one. Post any comments you have down below or any questions you may have. Do my best to answer them or make a future video about it. See you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching.